I'm scared. I'm afraid.
Real people with real voices telling very real stories. Brought to you by Getting Ready for Life. So welcome once again to She Doesn't Even Go Here. It's episode 2. I'm back on deck. I'm not really important to the whole scheme of things, but I can tell you this is brought to you by Getting Ready for Life. Check out the website and the Facebook page. Dr. Glenn is back. Glenn Hosking from VU, who's a clinical psychologist. Welcome back, Dr. Glenn.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
You were the star of episode 1, my friend. People would.
I don't want to build up the expectations of episode 2 at all, so we'll put that aside.
I had Broadway scouts calling me during the week.
Yeah.
Availability. Also with us is one of my favourite people in the entire world, Maria Petridis, of course, one of the great teachers and one of the most beautiful human beings stalking the planet Earth. Hello, Maria. How are you? Thanks for getting on board.
Oh, what a lovely introduction. Thank you, Greg.
And you're looking elegant. That top is just, that colour works for you, Maria. You're looking elegant as always.
I think about everything before I come onto this program.
And we've got 3 students, and these are the people I really, really want to have a chat to. Hawa, Tanya and Samira. Ladies, thank you for joining us on She Doesn't Even Go Here on this second edition. Look at that, 3 beautiful smiling faces. Thanks for getting on board. I want to ask all the 3 students a question, and more than anything else, and we were talking about during the week, what's the key question? Now we're in lockdown, now we can't see each other, so it's a question without notice. I'll go to you, Tanya, first. Who are you missing in the entire world more than anybody else now that you're not allowed to kind of socialise too much? Is there anybody in particular you want to send a shout out and say, look, I'm missing you?
Not really at the moment, because I keep in contact with like all my friends.
Oh, of course, through social media. I keep forgetting about that. What about you? How are you missing anybody in particular? You'd love to go out and give them a cuddle and say, geez, I miss you?
Not really, because I'm still working, because I still see most of my friends. So, yeah.
On social media, Samira, don't let me down. Do you miss? If you had the chance to break out right now and go and give someone a cuddle and say, look, it's been a while, who would it be?
I would actually give a hug to Miss Maria, because I miss her.
There you go. So we've finally got a shout out. So, see, on to more serious matters, it's been quite an unusual year. I'll go to you, Maria, first, if I may, because we've had a couple of discussions. This whole switch to online learning, it's been an equally difficult transition for both young people and parents and teachers as well.
You know what I think is really difficult is I think our students are really being bombarded with a lot of emails, and they're using different platforms. So I think it's just really hard when they, I guess, open up their computer early in the morning and then they just see all these messages. And, by the time, we know even as adults, by the time you sift through things, you just think, oh my God, this is just too much. Whereas, it's a little bit different when you're at school and you go from class to class and you've got your workbooks and just you follow your timetable. I think, being in front of the screen and constantly trying to sort of get things done by the end of the lesson and submit things. So, it's just using technology constantly. I think it's really hard for kids.
I saw you, Tanya, down there nodding your head in agreement. So, Maria mentioning all these emails, and has it been difficult for you to keep focus on your learning?
Yeah, like at home, like I feel like there's a lot of distractions, and because we're not in like school and like in the classroom, I feel like there's less motivation to do work.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. We talked about that a few times, Dr. Glenn, that motivational factor that was very much a focus in our first show, and it rears its ugly head again. How do young people stay motivated when they're operating in isolation and also facing this welter of emails and information? What would be something that you might put into the structure of their day?
Well, one thing that I think is helpful for people to keep in mind within this is that one of the benefits of being around other people is that your experience is validated and normalized. And so when you're like, I've got all of these kind of emails, you know, if you were in a classroom, if you're interacting with people, if you're seeing kind of people, you know, you might say, oh, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed about this. And then you might hear somebody else go, yeah, I am as well, and I am as well, and I am as well. And so it kind of helps you to appreciate that you're not the only one that's experiencing this, and that it's, you know, a pretty normal kind of reaction. But when you're, like Maria says, you know, you're waking up in the morning and you're bombarded with a lot of emails, and it can be overwhelming, and you might not understand it. You don't have the opportunity necessarily to clarify what it kind of means. That's really difficult. And you don't have that opportunity to talk about that with your peers at that particular point in time, and maybe feel that, you know, you're not the only one that's experiencing this sense of lack of motivation or feeling kind of overwhelmed. And so it's great when everyone said, when looking at who are you missing, people said, well, I'm still kind of seeing my friends, and that's so fantastic, and it's incredibly important. But it's also important to connect with other people in your year level about educational stuff, about school-based stuff, and even just to kind of talk about like those kind of things, like I'm just feeling like I'm not motivated, because you'll probably find that there's, you know, a kind of an experience of that across the board.
Hawa, I'll go to you on this. You mentioned you're not missing anybody in particular because you're staying in touch on social media. And Dr. Glenn was just talking about that, staying in touch on social media. How much of your time is devoted to talking about stuff, whatever young people talk about, and how much is devoted to talking about school?
School, yeah, not so much, but I make sure like I communicate on how things are at home, make sure like they're okay, and like, you know, just life gossip, you know.
Yeah, a bit of gossip. Got any good gossip for us, Hawa, or anything in particular?
I'm not trying to get in trouble.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah.
So is that let me ask you, Hawa, then, when you are at school, when you are presenting at school, is that a different dynamic? Do you talk about how you're going with your studies and that much more frequently?
Yeah, it's different. We talk a lot about the work, and yeah.
So on that basis, are you scared of your outcome this year? You're in year 12 doing VCALs, I understand it?
Yep.
Are you at all troubled by the fact that this absence from school and absence of peer group and absence of pressure to work and talk about school is going to impact on how your year ends up?
Just a little bit, like tiny bit. Yeah.
Just a tiny bit. What about you, Samira? Are you at all worried about the impact that this is going to have on your outcome? And one of the phrases that we use is you are not your ATAR score. It doesn't, your year 12 outcomes aren't going to necessarily decide life for you. But having said that, are you conscious of how this is impacting on your studies?
Kind of, because like it's different when you're at home to like when you're at school. So like if you're constantly studying at home and then you go back to school, like you start to lose, like, for example, I started losing like my sleep pattern because I'm like, it's like harder to wake up in the morning and like go to school. But like if I'm not motivated, I won't be able to like get out of my bed and like start doing my work.
Are you staying up later and, you know, doing all sorts of sort of things that you might not normally do if you were in the school routine?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. Let's go around quickly. I'll stay with you, Samira, for the time being. First of all, family pressure as well. Is there pressure on you from your family to perform even though you're at home? It must be a difficult kind of chemistry being at home, but also having to be at school. And are you being, you know, how's your family doing with all this?
They're not like pressuring me, but my mum like motivates me to like do my best and continue doing school.
Okay. How does that translate at your house, Tanya? Motivation and family, and how are they treating it all? Is it like, Tanya, get out of bed, come on, move yourself, or how's that working?
I think my family's been a bit supportive, and like they offer like me support and extra help if I need it. But then
But yeah, you got a cheeky smile. You get away with it if you can. How are you tracking in terms of being trying to learn in your own domestic, your own family environment? It's quite a different experience.
Yeah, it's very different. For me, I'd say like my parents, they support, but there's some like, because I still have duties that I have to do at home, so they expect me to still do those duties although I'm at home. I'm like trying to study, so I try to balance everything with what's going on. Yeah.
What sort of duties? Is it kind of like as soon as you finish your maths, go out and put the trash out and then come back in and do the English? Is that how it works?
Oh no, it's like sometimes my parents leave. I've got to look after the kids. I've got to wash the dishes. Just house duties. Yeah.
That's pretty hard work, Maria. I'll go to you.
Yeah, and Hawa's also got a job, so she has to
Yeah.
also work after school as well.
So how large a factor, how much do you take into account as teachers, as school communities, take into account that these guys have got so many commitments and obligations outside of school, as well as the pressure of trying to study in their own, in their own environment? It's a really big ask. You're either not listening to me or we've lost sound. Can you all hear me? Yeah, you all can.
Yeah.
Only Maria. Maria, can you?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
There's just noise outside.
Oh, okay. Well, look, I'll ask the question again, just quickly. How much do you take into account when you're assessing the progress of these guys? How do you take into account their circumstances? As you mentioned, Hawa's got a job, she's got commitments at home, etc. Is that something you go?
I take everything into consideration. If the kids communicate to me, I'm just going to give them as much time that they need to finish an assessment task. And I think it's probably more beneficial that they've got part-time jobs and they're just still continuing with things that they normally do, rather than me say, look, you shouldn't be working, you should be doing your studies. And I can understand things are not going to be as normal. My kids are still getting work into me. I don't care if it's a couple of days late or, I'm fine with that. So they're very good at communicating as well. So it's fantastic.
Dr. Glenn, what sort of, we've spoken about this a couple of times, but you're talking about the three beautiful young people we've got on board today, in that, that sort of pressure to maintain everything in their lives, despite the fact that we're faced with a situation emotionally that's quite different to anything else we've ever experienced.
Yeah, it is. And we don't really know how we're going to react in this situation, because none of us, or at least most of us, have never experienced anything like this before. And so we are going to respond and react and feel different things that we've not kind of experienced before. And just kind of hearing some of these stories, people, Howard's story of having a job and then looking after kids at home and doing things around the kind of house, and then year 12 on top of that. Year 12 that's offsite, that's done remotely. Like, I think it's really important that people do kind of cut, the students do cut themselves some slack and really almost, give yourself permission to be doing it in a way that's, because it's going to be challenging, it's going to be difficult, it's going to be, at times it's going to be a struggle. Get support in that, of course, but to kind of appreciate that this is going to be a pretty stressful time, probably always was going to be, and then we're adding all of this on top of it.
I think last week on our first episode of She Doesn't Even Go Here, of course, brought to you by Getting Ready for Life. In the first episode, we had one of our guests, one of our young people on, saying that they felt robbed of this year. They felt robbed of their Year 12 experience their last year at school. Tanya, I'll go to you first. Are you feeling that same kind of disappointment that a big chunk of your final year at secondary school is being taken away, that social element? And that's really, really important to young people.
Yeah. Like 2019, I'm pretty sure everyone said that 2020 is going to be their year. But then, now, like with like COVID going around and stuff, then it's kind of like restricting us from like making 2020 our year. Does
that make you angry, disappointed, frustrated? How does that impact on you? Because I think I would feel much the same.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing, but like I feel like I understand that there's like nothing I can really do about it now. Yeah.
And it was really interesting. Samira and Hawa were nodding their heads furiously. So it's the same experience for you, Samira, for example, year 12, yeah, rock out and all that sort of stuff. I don't know what kids do anymore, but you're missing that big blast of your final year of secondary school. It's must be exceptionally disappointing.
Yes, it is.
And yet you smile in such a radiant way. Yeah, right. There it is. Look at it. And there's no way you can make it up. You guys at Hawa, I'll ask you, going back to school, are you worried that this experience might even change the social nature, the friendships and all that sort of stuff again? Things that are so crucial when you're in your last year of school and you're just, reaching adulthood and everything's turned on its head.
Yeah, it's going to be different. It's going to be a bit, I don't know, trying to get used to, like it's like starting over again, like from the beginning of the year. Yeah.
Let's cheer up a bit. Let's talk about Miss Petrides and her book collection behind her. I never ever took you as a reader, Maria. Are they actual books that you've read, or are you just putting that on for decoration?
They're mainly cookbooks. And, great outdoors.
Yeah.
Moments in time. So it's really, and photo albums.
You are.
I have that Moments in Time book, Maria.
Oh my God! See, some beautiful bonding.
Yeah, it's an old book because I think I got it for my 18th birthday.
Oh, did you? A couple of years ago for you.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When I was 18, books were in parchment and they were written in. It's a long time ago. What other things? Let's do as we did last week, because I'm always interested in what you're doing in your downtime. Hawa, in terms of between your job and family stuff in school, have you got any comfort foods that you're picking out on, or have you got? Well, I do. I'm telling you, 2-minute noodles have gone ballistic lately. What's your? Yeah.
2-minute noodles.
They're not bad, are they?
They're not.
What's your comfort food, and what's your favourite sort of comfort TV show or movie? What are you watching?
Right now I'm watching The Arrow on Netflix. I enjoy that, and 2-minute noodles. Yep.
You and I share many commonalities, Sarah, I've got to say that. What about you, Samira? You got a comfort food, the one that you're going to all the time just to make you feel better about the world?
Well, I make it myself, but yeah, lasagna.
You make lasagna yourself?
Yeah.
Holy moly. How long does it take? How long does it take to make lasagna?
Not long.
Okay.
Like an hour.
Sounds all right to me. Do you feed everybody else with it, or you just got guts at
I feed everyone else.
Oh, you're a little ripper. Anything entertainment-wise that you're keeping yourself amused with?
I just finished watching Prison Break.
Prison Break. Okay.
Yeah.
Might be handy for later in life too. You never know. Terrible thing to say. Tanya, what about you? Comfort food?
I've just been baking a lot.
Goodness gracious, potential chef here. What have you been baking, my friend?
Like cupcakes and like apple pies.
You do, I know, right? Are you finding that you're doing more things domestically around the house because of lockdown? You just all of a sudden you're stuck there, so you're finding yourself, interacting with people you don't always interact with. You're cooking and baking, and is it different, Tanya? You find yourself doing more domestic chores? Yeah,
I cook a lot and then I just eat a lot. Probably like clean my room like 3 times since lockdown.
Well, that's not real bad. How long? Presumably you don't clean it all that much during the week. Nope. Okay. That's interesting, Glenn, because we touched on this last week too, how this different dynamic, this different chemistry for young people in the home and interacting with their family and finding things to do that they weren't doing before.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that because we're spending so much time in the one location, it's sort of like makes sense that people want to keep it cleaner. I know certainly my place has never been so clean. And it's incredibly tidy because I'm kind of around so much. But it's great to be doing things like learning a new skill or indulging in a comfort food because it helps. And, you know, if you, lots of people are baking bread and, you know, doing, you know, Tanya's making cupcakes. And I don't know whether Tanya was doing that before, but lots of people are starting to learn things that they perhaps wouldn't have done otherwise. And I think that's great for people's mental health.
Well, I mean, look, you look below. We've got Tanya and Samira. We've got Samira on the lasagna. We've got Tanya with the afters, and that reeks of restaurant next year, doesn't it? You could just go out there and open your own place.
Once they're allowed to open, Greg.
Once they're allowed to open, that's right. Hey, Maria, I had a question for you, but I'm having a mental blank. It's not easy being me. I was going to ask you, who are you missing during this?
I miss my niece. Look, I miss all my students because I get bombarded in my office all the time. You know, they just always come in, even in the middle of their other classes, because my office is in between two classrooms. So I miss seeing their faces every day. But I miss my nieces and nephews, the little ones, the ones that love to give cuddles all the time. So that's been hard.
It has been. Are you looking forward to you're obviously looking forward to when the barriers come? What do you call it? The lockdown is unlocked, is that? Yeah. So hopefully, as I said, I think there's some talk about that being announced to some degree today, but I could be wrong, and I don't know when we're going to air, so I could be wrong about just about everything. I've got a question for because I know a couple of you have to leave us. I want to ask the three students who have been, I must say, exceptionally lovely and great young people. Isn't it wonderful, just by the way, Dr. Glenn and Maria, that we have these young people on this show and last week, and you just think young people are pretty awesome. You know,
I love it. Absolutely.
They get a bad rep, don't they?
Greg, I got to go with these students on camp at the start of the year. So we were really lucky. We got to take 60 of the VCAL students away, and it was such a pleasure and delight to be away with them for a whole 5 days. They're just beautiful students. Yeah.
And you got back alive as well, which is
yes.
something that,
we were lucky we got our camping.
Yes, absolutely. So just going around the three students who've been very gracious to join us, and I'll just ask the question, as I have done all along. How has this been? A lot of young people thought of this as this is a holiday. This is going to be great. We don't have to go to school, and others looked at it as being their worst nightmare. How did you start this lockdown? How did you feel, and how do you feel now?
I was so excited. Like, I remember I packed everything in my bag and I was like, I'm out of here. I'm not coming back. I'm gone. And then third weekend, I'm having meltdowns. I want to go back to school. Like, I really prefer school than this.
So, yeah, and that's been a story for a few people. Samira, was it worst nightmare or dream come true, and have you changed during the course of the time you've been locked down?
I actually agree with some of the things Howard said. It was like, I don't know, like when I woke up in the morning, like the first day of school, like online school, I was excited, but then like throughout the weeks, I became like more like wanting to go to school because it became harder.
So you've changed along the journey too. Tanya, who's gone completely cocoa bananas cleaning her room. And what about you? How are you feeling about it now? How'd you feel when they said, you don't have to go back to school, you can just nick off? But now, of course, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 weeks in, whatever it is, how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, at the start, I was so excited. Like, I thought like the workload would be easier. But then like now, like in the middle of like online classes, like I'm so behind, like so bombarded with like homework. And like, it just like makes me realize that like we all took school for granted. Like
That's
school.
an interesting one.
Yeah.
Did you hear that, Maria? They all took you for granted, eh? How about that? Who knew? So I know we're losing a couple of people, are we not? Yeah, we are. Who's got commitments? Because we've got to take a little break and then we'll work out who's staying with us. How are you? Have to go? Oh, you have to go to work, don't you?
Oh no, I start late today.
Well, you can stay with us. We'll keep you on if you want to stay. Samira, are you sticking with us, or?
I actually have to do something, so I gotta go.
Yeah, I know. I have to go. Sorry, I have to be somewhere else. Hey, well, listen, I'll tell you what, Samira, you've got a beautiful smile and a beautiful attitude, and I wish you luck for the rest of the
Thank
year
you.
and going forward. Tanya, do you have to pop up and clean your room now, or something?
No, I can stay.
You can stay for a little. Beautiful. We're going to have a full book. What about you, Miss Petrides? What's yours?
How much longer are you going?
For as long as, for about another 25 minutes or thereabouts. We're going to take a quick break, and we've got a couple of other guests coming in, but we'd love to have you stay on.
That might be too late. Sorry, I've just got, no, I've got to wash my hair. No, I actually have to go. I've got to go and pay some tradies who are at my brother's place. I'm the middle person at the moment doing stuff because he lives in Queensland.
All right.
I promised him.
Yeah,
I've got the cash here.
that's the most contrived. You can't pay in cash anymore. You've just, that's the worst excuse ever. So Maria and Samira, thank you so much for your time. Hawa, if you can stay on. Tanya, we've got a couple of other guests coming up. I'd love to keep you in the conversation if you're happy to stay there. And Dr. Glenn, who still can't commit to wearing pink. Well, you promised, you said.
Next time, maybe.
Yeah, all right. So we're going to have a little tiny break, and we'll be back with more of She Doesn't Even Go Here, thanks to Getting Ready for Life.
Yeah, hello. I was just in my room, catching up on the latest episode of She Doesn't Even Go Here, brought to you by Getting Ready for Life. And I heard someone break into my house. Yeah, there's someone in here with me. Yeah, no. Oh, he's coming in the door now. He's coming in. Oh. Alright, cool. Yeah, no. I know who this guy is. Yeah, I can deal with him. Yeah, cool. Yeah, say hi to the kids for me. Alright, see you later. Bye.
All right, a very warm welcome back to the second half of this edition of She Doesn't Even Go Here. And, of course, brought to you by Getting Ready for Life. You can check us out on the Facebook page or on the web page, which is the www thingamabob on the computers. I don't know much about technical stuff. Joining us for the second half of the show, two shining representatives of Melbourne High. Bill and Shane. Bill and Shane, welcome to She Doesn't Even Go Here. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, Greg. How about you?
Yeah, I'm good as gold. I'm just too old. I need to go and have a snooze. It's past my bedtime. It's good to have you along, gentlemen. Now, I am not aware. The only reason I try not to learn too much about the people that are coming on the show, but Bill in particular, what struck me, our producer was saying, you're the music captain, of course, at your school, but this whole lockdown thing, the whole virus thing, it's affected you without being too intrusive. And on a genuinely deleterious emotional level, you've been doing it hard. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. I think Cheyenne probably also shares a quite similar sentiment because he's school captain as well. And I think the reason why it's, been really hard on us is just that year 12, this year was basically supposed to be our year. There were a lot of opportunities, events that it would be probably the first and only time we'd get to experience them. All year 12s have to, have those events like formal, where we might end up missing out on. And we probably won't get that for the, any other time in the future. But I think what really impacts us most is that there's a lot of events that have become a lot more personal to us. So for example, for me, this year, because as music captain, things like winter concert, speech night, being able to give a speech, being able to show your own pride in what you've managed to accomplish in school. And basically all of that's been taken away from us. And now that we've been told that we probably won't have any outside of class activities for the rest of the year, it does hurt a little.
And particularly when you achieve, I know we spoke off air about achieving that role as music captain. I presume, Shane, the same for you. You get to your final year, you're elevated to a school captain's role, which I presume is fairly prestigious. it's almost like a culmination of your young life. So it's obviously, from what Bill was saying, it's had the same effect on you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're absolutely right. Like, leadership in Year 12 was something I've been looking forward to since I entered the school as like a small Year 9 student. So I think that, you work really hard to get to that final year of school, and you're really looking forward to a lot of those events that Bill was talking about as well. Like, for me, it's stuff like the leadership camp, stuff like Year 12 athletics carnival, things like our exchanges, which we have with other schools from Sydney and Adelaide, and all of those were cancelled for us. So it is a bit unfortunate. Also, with that, on the academic side, there is, there's so much uncertainty about assessment and a lot of other things which we're just not sure of, like how are we going to be internally assessed at school, how our end of year exams going to work, and then the school doesn't know and we don't know, so it's all really confusing and stressing at the moment.
So I've got to ask you, Shane, and I can tell that this, and you're not Robinson Crusoe. I mean, everybody, including Hawa and Tanya, who are still with it, every Year 12 student that we're speaking to, I think the general theme is that they just feel robbed of something, like something's been taken away. If I may ask you, Shane, where do you go to let those feelings out, to express those feelings of loss and dread? Is there, you've got your family around you, obviously, but it must be particularly hard that you just don't have anywhere that you can vent and maybe, cry and scream or whatever you need to do.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe not so much family, because that they're less familiar with what goes on at the school and what you have to celebrate. Obviously they know, but just not as well. I think the best way to vent it all has been just with the boys at school, mostly just talking to each other about it, like, oh, look at this is gone, and now, oh, this is gone as well, and then, oh, this exchange is cancelled as well. So it's all with the boys, I think. We've just been able to ventilate to each other and just bounce back what Bill was talking about, just like feelings of loss. But at least we have each other's back, so that's all right, and we're all in the same boat. So it's really, really, really sad that all of this has had to be cancelled, but the feeling of loss is shared, I think.
Yeah, so look, Doc, I'm going to you if I may, because this is a huge theme that we're seeing in these discussions on She Doesn't Even Go Here, and you look at the faces of these 4 young people, and they seem awesome, and we've seen a few. You've talked to a few others. Imagine for you and I, contextualize it. For you and I, we've spent years and years and years building a small business. And we get to the point where we've just opened a small business and this happens, and you would feel a grievous sense of loss and indignation. These kids, don't discount how hard it is for them.
Oh, absolutely. I think that that everything that both Shane and Bill said, and Tanya and Hara in the earlier segment, and also the people last week, that this kind of sense of expectations kind of build, and you sort of have like this thing like, oh, when I get to Year 12, I'm going to have that camp, or I'm going to have that leadership experience, or we're going to have speech night, or we're going to have that part of being the school captain or the music captain or whatever it might be, that it kind of creates this sense of kind of expectation. And then suddenly this freaky thing happens where all that's taken away, a big part of that is kind of taken away, and that sudden experience shifts and changes as a result of all of this stuff. And there's a grief that goes along with that. There's an adjustment that goes along with that. You're exactly right. It's a sense of loss. And I think it's so great when you're all talking about the fact that what you're getting the most out of is when you're connecting with each other about it and talking with each other, because everybody else that you're talking to, all your other classmates, they're the best people who can relate kind of to that. And so I take Shane's point that, if you could talk to your parents and your family kind of about that, but they're not living it and they're not experiencing it. They haven't got the same kind of expectations that you had in relation to this year, and they're not experiencing the same kind of loss. Some of the words that people have used, I think Tanya said in the earlier section about it, was a real sense of disappointment. And Shane, you said that it was really, you know, kind of unfortunate. And I think those kind of terms are spot on. That, you know, and you know, thinking about it in that way is so helpful in terms of helping you to be able to cope with it as best as possible.
I think one of the coping mechanisms we could use is get Tanya to cook up batches of her cupcakes to give to everybody, just to make everybody a bit happier about the world.
Are you up for that, Tanya?
Yeah.
Yeah, get some cupcakes going stat for these guys. Bill, just quickly, I do want to ask you in particular, because I know your name bobbed up on our production sheet earlier in the week. If you don't mind me dwelling too deeply, we're talking about how do you release these emotions. I've got a question for you. What could anybody say to you at any point now to make up for the sense of loss that you're feeling? Is there anything at all that you could conceivably think that could replicate your, and sort of assuage your feelings of loss?
To be honest, I really don't think there is, because just like you've said before, I feel like everything that I've looked forward in the year, all my ambitions for the year, all my plans, all my hard work, they've just been completely taken away. And even if the situation gets better, the odds are that I'm still not going to be able to get them back. And through the year, you know, other than studies, there's not really much else for me to do anymore, because what really made me happy in life, what really made me happy to be at school, I don't have any of that anymore. So to answer your question, I really don't think there is anything that could, you know, make me any happier at this current point.
I can offer you just this, though, Bill, if I may, is that my producer, who's been in contact with you, and clearly from, as we've seen on this particular She Doesn't Even Go Here, you seem like a charming, gentle, well-mannered young man. I can promise you this, my friend, even though you may feel robbed right now, you keep this for the remainder of your life going forward. You'll get by and you'll do some great things. And if you're into music, you'll probably be directing the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra in the next couple of years, or just watching on telly. You know, keep your chin up, mate. That's the thing, isn't it?
I think just to kind of pick up on what you said there, Bill, I think it is like, and for everybody, like, this is, you know, and when we hear these kind of stories, there's a real kind of commonality of it. It's a really normal, reasonable experience. I don't think there's any kind of need to feel guilty about the fact that you feel really pissed off about it, or you feel really shortchanged,
yep.
Be angry, if you're really upset. You know, if you kind of think that you've had this kind of expectation over the course of however many years, and then suddenly this thing has happened and that's taken away, it would be very unusual that someone would not be reacting in a way.
Absolutely. Let's go around again. Just let's lighten it up a little bit, can we? Let's go around. I want to know, starting with you, Cheyenne, what has been the funnest thing about lockdown, and what's been the worst thing about lockdown? Have you got opinions in both areas?
Yeah, too easy. I think I'll start with the best part. Extra sleep. I think for me and Bill especially, most of the boys that go to our school live quite far away. Personally, I live around 18 kilometres away from the school, so it takes me an hour and a half to get to school and an hour and a half to go back. So I save those 3 hours, and I can wake up later for when we have online classes and stuff. So I get my full 8 hours of sleep. That's been a real privilege. I don't usually get that. But I think the worst part has just been that lack of social interaction with friends. I think that that's a real defining part of school. And like recesses and lunches were pretty much the most fun part of the day. Like, you spend that time with your friends, you have a chat, have a laugh. And also those train rides as well that I was talking about. Like, those train rides aren't just by myself looking at random people on the train. They're spent with mates, having a chat, just enjoying ourselves, having interesting conversations.
Putting your bags everywhere so the old blokes like me can't get a seat. I know how you work, don't worry.
No, trust me. We stand up most of the time.
Yeah.
Back in year nine, we'd always used to get reported, and then we faced the consequences, and now we have to stand up. But yeah, but yeah, I think that's my best and worst part: just sleep and disconnection from friends, I think.
Let's go to Hawa again. I didn't ask you this before. If you reflect on lockdown as it's been for you, what's been the best thing about it and what's been the worst thing about it for you?
I'd have to say the same, sleeping in. Like that's probably been the best. Just having that time, that extra time to just stay in bed. Worst thing, just having to see like 5 people like every day, every minute, just looking at them like too much. Like I don't want to look at you that much, too much, Yeah.
Fair enough. Let's go to you, Tanya. Best and worst thing. Surely cleaning your room 3 times a day can't be the best thing about it.
Best thing probably is like bonding with family, because like with school, like I go to school and then I come home and then I do my work and then like I don't really spend time with them. But now in like quarantine, like we like have conversations and like we talk, and yeah.
Do you like them better? Do you feel like learning a little bit about them that you probably didn't acknowledge before?
Yeah, like because I have 3 sisters, like bonding with them in quarantine like definitely like grew our relationships with each other, and like I understand like how like they like what the reasons are for how they act. So yeah, I feel like we understand each other better. And yeah,
I would have thought that was a positive of the lockdown. Absolutely. It's a wonderful thing. Bill, what about you? Best and worst things about
I'd probably say the same as Cheyenne, actually. So best first is definitely the sleep. I think the sleep is probably the biggest thing. But I think the worst part is just there's not much you can really do, which, well, for me at least, which kind of makes me happy anymore. Because I think one of the most enjoyable parts, just as Cheyenne said, about going to school was being able to see your friends, being able to talk with them. And you don't really get that anymore. You can't go out because of restrictions and your parents, and texting, talking to people online is just really different.
But having said that, I can give you a bit of an upside. If you do have this deep love and passion for music, being isolated in your own little enclave, this is a perfect opportunity to sit down and write a few songs about the whole thing. Have you ever thought of that?
Yeah, well, I have been composing a little bit, but I can't really practice because my brother's living at our house, and he's working in his room, and if I practice, it's really disturbs him. So
yeah, Bill is allowed to vouch for
that. Can tell you some of the great poets, novelists, and musicians in history came from social isolation. I'm making that up, actually, Dr. Glenn.
But heartache, often good art is produced by heartache or distress.
There you go. And he's a clinical psychologist. He'd know if anyone would. Just with the studies, boys haven't spoken to you about it. We spoke to the 2 girls earlier on. In terms of the actual studies, and you mentioned concerns, Cheyenne, before about how the year is going to pan out in terms of evaluating success or failure, and obviously, how scary is that?
Real scary. I think that in the last few years, the biggest thing that's motivated me is seeing my older friends go through the system. And I think that when you see them do all the things that they're doing, the things that the sucks at school, the end of year exams, you're like, okay, I do these things as well. And then if I work equally as hard, I can get the same results. But that's been kind of thrown into the air, and we don't have much direction. We've been given a little bit of direction last week. All of the study designs were revised for all of the Year 12 subjects. So we've had a look at those. A lot of content's been scrapped, and the exams are going to be in December. So look, we've got a little bit of comfort, but it's still nowhere near as much as we'd like. So it's just uncertain and scary and dark.
Yeah, it really is. But don't worry, my friend. your life doesn't revolve around your ATAR score. You can still do awesome.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. I agree.
Absolutely. I'll put you on notice, boys and ladies, while I go to Dr. Glenn to talk about musicals or something else for a minute. You've all got this. You've got the opportunity to ask one question of somebody else on the young person's panel, and I'll put a clock on this. But Dr. Glenn, I don't know about you, but I think doing this show, She Doesn't Even Go Here, brought to you by Getting Ready for Life. I don't know about you, but I've found this so interesting to get the insights from young people and have a real think about how their existence is under these lockdown regulations.
I completely agree. I think that we see a real commonality around different reactions that students are having in relation to this, different anxieties that students have around what this is going to mean for their ATAR or next year or whatever it might be, but also that real sense of loss, people missing their friends, people missing those kind of experiences. That's been a real kind of common thread amongst what people have been talking about.
And the other bit that I defy anybody that's watched this episode or is watching this episode or watched the first episode of She Doesn't Even Go Here, brought to you by Getting Ready for Life. I defy anybody of an adult in the adult category to look at the young people we've spoken to and not see an amazing array of young adults about to take the world by storm, regardless of how this year plays out.
I completely concur.
One question. You've all got one question of one amongst you. Tanya, I'm going to go with you. I know you're obsessing. You need to clean that room again. I know. You've got one question to ask of any of the other young people on the panel.
So for Bill and Cheyenne, like what are like some tips for like other young people to like stay motivated and like be on top of your work, like to help them do that?
Bill, do you want to go first?
I actually think that's a bit of a tough question to answer because we all get motivated in really different ways. So, for me, the way I get motivated is setting really high goals for myself. And often that's not just academics, that's with other studies as well. In terms of advice, I would honestly just say, try to keep the mindset that if you keep pushing and keep moving forward now, it'll eventually get better and there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
I think for me, in terms of staying motivated, I think it's just best if everyone stays in touch with their friends through whatever means they can, whether that be Zoom or messenger calls or Snapchat or whatever, because I think that what keeps me motivated is the fact that my friends keep me accountable. Like just going to school, people ask you, or what have you been up to? How have you been studying? What chapter are you up to? What have you been doing? So I think if you sort of maintain that interaction with all your friends, then you can have a chat about what you guys are all doing at home and just keep up what you'd be doing as if you went to school normally.
Bill, may I offer this to you, Bill, before I give you a forum for your question? You're a really brave man. I'll tell you why. Because I know you've been fairly open about how this has affected you, and I think to be that bold and to let people know that makes you pretty strong, pretty tough. I admire you, Bill. Well done. One question of anybody on the panel, my friend.
I actually wanted to ask Tanya and Hawa this. How do you guys stay motivated? Because I know that everyone stays motivated in different ways, and I'm just really curious.
Oh, do you want to go first?
You go first. I'm going to go first. You can go first.
Okay. I feel like I'm kind of use the same like method as Cheyenne. Like my friends and I, like we frequently call and then we like text each other, make sure we're like all like doing our work. And yeah, I feel like my friends keep me motivated.
Hawa?
The way I stay motivated, I just changed like my environment and space. Like I'm not always in my room when I'm like doing the work. Like sometimes I'd be like outside sitting in the sun doing my work, or just change of environment makes me concentrate more and feel nice. Yep.
Now, you reckon you're struggling with having to see the same people all the time. I live with 2 cats. How do you reckon they feel about seeing this face every day? So you've got one question, Hawa, for anybody else on the panel before we wrap it up?
For Bill, I just have a question. With the workload, like how's with your school and being a musician, how do you like doing all of it? Like, you know?
I think that actually comes down to motivation. So back, you know, in term 1 before everything escalated, every day was really busy, right? You know, other than the school day, I would probably have music rehearsals in the morning or after school, other co-curricular activities. But I think it just came down to the fact that I had really good organization and I had the motivation to do it. Nowadays, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty about studies, but personally, I'm actually not that worried about it, only because, you know, I have a lot of time during the day, and I just spend more time doing it since I don't really have anything else to do. And I feel like remote learning hasn't been very useful, and I haven't learned much from it. And it's all just come down to myself and my own ability. And because I set really high expectations for myself, it acts as the motivation to just, you know, allow me to spend that extra time on work every day to hopefully do well in the end.
Cheyenne, you're school captain, so I want a captain's effort to round it off. One question to anybody else on the panel.
Yeah, sure. I'll throw this one to Hawa and Tanya. Personally, I've been feeling that every day is really, really repetitive, and that's just through my daily routine, the restricted things we can do, not being able to leave the house as much. So what have you guys been doing to sort of keep some variation in your days and just not get bored of your everyday routine?
Well, Tanya, please,
well, I'm still working. So I take work as like different. It's obviously different from home. So when I go to work, it's like it changes a bit. Like sometimes, even the environment with the manager, seeing a different manager, like not having the same manager all the time, it's good. Like I just, yeah, that's what I do. I go to work. Yeah.
Like I try to wake up at the same time that I would with school. Like sometimes I'm not that successful, but when I do wake up like 8 a.m. to like 3 p.m, then like it helps me like just like do my work and like be motivated to like finish the like online schooling classes. Yeah.
Beautiful, ladies and gentlemen, and I say that with absolute respect. Dr. Glenn, before we go, your thoughts. What a wonderful panel of young people, and you can't say enough about the young people, given the difficult times and the way they're handling it.
Yeah, I agree completely, Greg, and I think that, you know, humans are resilient, and I think that one thing that's important is that this is a tough time for you all. It can be helpful to appreciate that it will pass, it will end, it will improve. It'll go in, you know, peaks and troughs, and it'll be difficult, and sometimes it'll be kind of more manageable. You all, to me, demonstrate, you know, lots of really great insight and, you know, lots of emotional intelligence. I think that's going to really help you as you kind of battle your way through this. But do appreciate that it will pass at some point.
You're a good man, Dr. Glenn Hosking from VU, clinical psychologist, who's currently analysing me once again in a very judgmental way. I'm very sure about that. How are you, a ripper, Tanya? You are lovely, and good luck with that cleaning. I can't see it. Your room looks spotless, by the way. Bill, good luck with the music and everything else. Keep your chin up, old boy. Cheyenne, you are every bit the school captain. I can sense it by the way you conducted yourself today. Can I give you one thing? You can't stop the tide coming in, guys, but you can learn to swim. We will see you in 1 week's time again on She Doesn't Even Go Here, brought to you by Gettin Ready for Life. Thanks to everybody for their support. These guys on the panel. We'll catch you soon. All right, ringing the bell. That's a school bell, by the way. I'm getting ready. Are you getting ready? We're all getting ready. We're all getting ready.
For life.
Brought to you by Getting Ready for Life.
Stop smiling!